Hey everybody, welcome to Champ and Sons episode 2 of our Let's Play Planet Coaster series. Now, one thing that some of y'all have probably noticed if you watched the first episode is I did do a lot of the groundwork while basically off camera. I'm kind of dressing up the entrance plaza, and I'm calling it a plaza because a lot of people start out straight into a main street, and well, it's not really kind of what I kind of wanted to do, but also with regards to, as I mentioned, some of the parks that I go to before. Um, Six Flags Fiesta Texas, I guess, has a bit of a main street when you walk in terms of there are a couple shops and a theater. But Six Flags Over Texas up in Dallas, it really doesn't. It kind of has just a little entrance plaza. And I guess that's what mine is more inspired by, I would say, is the entrance really plaza that you have there. And that's even going down to, let's just say, with the carousel, the merry-go-round that we have. Um, that's kind of been one of the things, as you saw me place it before. And I kind of go back through and repeat these steps again because I wanted to try to really get down the placement that I was wanting. Um, and then that's mainly for the path work. I wanted, as everybody knows, if you play this game, the pathing is kind of a pain in the keister. So I really was looking to see, okay, how far back do I need to put this to kind of get the ramp that I'm wanting the people to go on for the entrance and where I wanted the entrance placed, along with the exit to kind of get the angles I was going for. And that is pretty reminiscent, like I said, for the Six Flags Over Texas in Dallas. One thing you'll notice with those parks is that there is kind of, when you walk right in to Over Texas, you see basically what amounts to a fountain, which would probably be more represented by I would guess by the little circle in the center where I'm going to put the sign for the park name, which I still haven't figured out, and I know I need to, but it's just kind of not really on my to-do list at this time. But I'll get around to it, and we'll put that sign there. I'm going to do my best to make a custom-made sign. But that's what you see in Over Texas, so that's kind of what I was going for, the same style, I guess. And the carousel's a classic ride, going back all the way to RCT and everything. The carousel's pretty about as classic as it can get. So here, what you kind of see me doing is I'm laying out the groundwork to kind of cover up a lot of the bottom of it. You know, that's one of the things that whenever you lift a ride in general, you kind of want to have something, just not always just straight up supports or just kind of the basic ground cover that you get with Planet Coaster or any of the roller coaster tycoon games. Um, And as we've kind of always mentioned before, foliage is a big deal. So outlining this little exit path here is really kind of more for me to be able to place down my planting and flowers that you'll see later on to really kind of dress up the spot. Now, to get this whole ground area covered and to get the pathway kind of covered so you're not seeing the pathway supports and all that, that it takes basically doing multiple building parts. So it's not one that we just go straight into that we can do off of one building. It's something that we had to do off multiple and kind of moving some things around. And like I said, for my style of building that I've always done, that it may sound kind of ridiculous, but that is a stretch for me to do. I've never been one to reach out and do something in that style. But with this park, I'm going to try to do that more often. Um, and put some ground coverings on to kind of clear up the path so you're not just seeing some pathway followed by grass edgings and all that. Because anytime you're getting off a ride and most theme parks generally you're not going to just see path and grass on your exit to it. That'll wait till you're actually in the park and you're going through to different sections. And so that's kind of what I'm doing here and covering that up with just the basic kind of cement blocks, cement roofing tiles, and separating them out from the assigned building and lowering them and using that advanced move tool to get it to fit in where I'm kind of hoping it fits in at a proper spot. Um, One thing that I do run into, and I'm not sure if everybody else does, is once I have something raised, and you'll kind of see me get through this a little bit later on in building these walls and these cover up sections, but is making sure that I have everything covered up from ground to bottom. Because sometimes I'll think I have it all the way down lowered, but then I go to look at it and I've got what would amount to like 1 foot of space, so it's nothing major and it's actually fairly easy to cover up. But it's one of those little kind of nitpicky things that does still get to me. Um, so right here, I'm just adding the basic cement covering for the building, so everything kind of has its uniformity in that sense, uh, and trying to not leave as much open space as possible. And so here, and I don't know if it's possible to do it with some, if you can get one of the roofing tiles and kind of angle them in a way. I couldn't do that, or at least I couldn't figure that out. So I said, all right, let's see what else can I do. So I decided to take some of the, I guess essentially pillars that are not on the grid, sink it down so it's at the proper angle to be able to go along with that incline, and kind of match it up to what we have um, leading up to, once again, covering just the blank space. And I know at the beginning I said I'm trying to limit the piece count, and really I do. I promise you, I try my best. Um, but for something like that, yeah, it's going to take 5 or 6 of those little pillars going across and then angling them and bringing them down. And I just basically take it all the way into the ground there. And so that way, once again, I can go back and get some roof tiles, or if I'm not mistaken, I think I go ahead and go with some plants, some little bit of foliage in that area. Um, right here, I'm just trying to keep a little bit of that realism as far as bordering the pathway. And I guess it's not so much realism as it is just the finer details that you see from a lot of the best builders in the game and the best creators for this, for Planet Coaster. And it's just trying to keep step with them in that sense. And so that's really what that was. Is I guess you could say amateurish as it may have been. That was really my attempt at it. Um, so here I am starting to look at foliage because, as everybody knows, foliage can really kind of change how things appear and how it looks. And that's just kind of some filler. And I'm going to go ahead and plop down some flowers to make it look like, hey, this was meant to be here in that fashion, while still appearing random. I don't know. That's just the type of capability that I bring. Um, and that little, I guess it's pronounced scaviola stuff. I'm not sure how you pronounce it, but I love that for covering up planters and being down and below. And if you'll notice in some of the planters in the plaza, that's the same way I did it. The downside to it is when you get to some angles, some tight corners, it'll start to stick out. But that's just kind of the way things go. And so little stuff like that in the game, I'm going to let it go. So right here, I wanted to go with a basic sign. I wasn't really too much into creating, I guess you could say, a custom sign for the flat rides. Um, it's not the Venetian carousel. That is the smaller one that's in Plan Cove that was released originally, and then I don't never saw a sign come with this carousel when they released it. Correct me if I'm wrong, anybody, but I just don't think one was there. So I went with the Venetian one, mainly just because I think it worked. It is a carousel, and it was really something that one is probably better than what I was going to do for it to begin with. But I'm going to focus more on my custom signs when I get to the actual coasters. And speaking of coasters, we should be getting to, I would say, our first coaster probably in the next episode, episode 3. And I say that because if you notice between a lot of theme parks, it's not always just like a heavily themed area straight into another heavily themed area. Yeah, sometimes maybe with the Disney Worlds and Disneylands and Universal Studios, you can run into that. But for the most part, what you generally are going to have is some walking paths So just basically little walkways, kind of dressed up a little bit, maybe a shop here or there, but with some trees and some nice fencing and all that to create some good viewpoints. And that takes you into a more themed area. So that's really what I'm probably going to go with here is go with more of a let's have a little walkway into a themed area, and then I'll work on those themed areas with the rides and all that. By the way, I'm not sure which ride I want to go with or how I really want to take this into a direction, either left, um, to the left side of the park, or even to the right. Or I'm thinking I might actually go around this carousel. So there's a pathway that trails off to the right between the carousel and a building that you're going to see me create here in a little while. Um, but that I'm thinking maybe splitting it off into a smaller section off the right, then go up and have possibly a more traditional Main Street area. I haven't really decided on that one yet. And I know I said I was going to do a lot of planning for this, and I haven't. That's just my style, I guess. I'm not the biggest planner in the world. But that's kind of what I was thinking. My biggest question is one, what type of ride, what type of roller coaster should I go with, right? My favorite ones in the game really are the hybrid, wooden hybrid coasters with the steel tracks, just because of what you can do with them. And really, those are my favorite rides that I've been on in the last couple of years. The Texas Giant and the Iron Rattler, I absolutely love them. The Giant has probably the most insane airtime of a ride that I've been on in years. Like I said, granted, I only have been to these two parks in the last 4 or 5 years, or I guess the last 15 years, really. So if there's others, hey, let me know. Odds of me ever going to them, very low. I'm hoping when I retire in a while, or at least once I get all my kids out the house, maybe I can make that happen. But for right now, it's Fiesta Texas, and it's also going to be Six Flags Over Texas. Maybe every now and then, if they lower the prices for their stinking season passes. I mean, jeez. We were offered a season pass for, I think it's like $80. Um, and that was on special. That was on their pay your 30% of the full price, and here's your $80 season pass. And that's ridiculous. First and foremost, their season pass is maybe worth $80 in total, based off their theme parks. But and even then, for someone, I mean, I have 5 kids. That's 7 season passes for my wife, myself, and my kids. That's ridiculous to try to spend that much money to go. And we would go. We've been 15 times in a year, so I guess technically we got our money out of it. But jeez, you got to be kidding me. All right, so I kind of digress on that one. So here's what I'm kind of doing is working on one of our next buildings, which is going to end up being a restroom and a food stall. What you saw me kind of doing right there is I wanted to measure it off from the main entrance building a little bit, but I needed it to keep because I'm going to put a restroom in the back and I got to have a walkway. So I did figure, the size 13 meter, whatever, or 13-foot walkway is generally equivalent to the 4 meters like length in a building, right? So just put one wall, put your second wall, delete the first one, you got your walkway space. And so that's what I was kind of going with. And then one thing I generally like to try to do with the buildings that I make, they are more standard shape of a building, but I also like to try to make them at different heights. Let them have multiple levels to them. That's kind of one thing I do think adds some depth into it, and kind of cleans up the look a little bit at least. Um, and also change up the roofing. Don't Sometimes I'll make just the square roofs, and I find myself getting in a habit of doing that just constantly, which really doesn't help anybody in the long run. You know what I mean? So here I'm just once again trying to add another layer to the building, and that's something I have found that I think really makes buildings look pretty decent, especially a basic building like what you're kind of seeing right here in front of you is. Well, let me just change the grid size over, and let me just add in a simple little wall, and it really affects kind of the overall shape and the pop of the building. Um, and if you're someone like me that doesn't do the greatest of detail work in the world, I think adding that little extra bit of pop to it can make a huge difference overall. And here, just adding some of that trim. And oddly enough, I see those trim corner pieces, and it just dawned on me, hey, I can do that, and it closes off the corner versus having an open corner. And as I'm filming this, I notice I totally forget to do that on the upper level. But you know what? I'm not going to change it. There's no need. We're just going to let that one go. Okay? Not everything's perfect everywhere we go, so why let that be perfect? All right, so just putting in some wood supports to really kind of help dress up the building. And you'll see me kind of do that as we go along with our buildings. Once again, it's just kind of adding some layers, and I like to keep things nice and neat so it's kind of boxing it off into each of its quadrants, really. So that's kind of what I'm going with on it. So, like I said, this shop will be designed, and then another one will be coming out in this episode, and I'll let y'all kind of get a hold of that one and watch it while I get some music playing for you. And we are going to have a little bit of a live segment. So stay tuned for that and kind of walk around this entrance plaza to get a little better view of it as we kind of go along. So stay tuned, enjoy the tunes, and I'll catch y'all here in a little bit. And I'm back. So, as y'all see the building of the photo booth, what you kind of see me working on is what I had mentioned before, the little path work from here. And this has always been a struggle for me once I do an entrance area, whether it be a main street or a plaza, is kind of where do I take the path from here? Um, that's one of those things that I just don't always catch my eye on. And as also kind of mentioned before, is here's the pathway leading from the bathroom to the entrance area. And I like having a bathroom at the beginning. You know, it's one of those things that I think everybody generally uses to start. You know, the anticipation, the excitement just builds up and it makes you got to go. You know, when you got to go, you got to go. So here I am creating kind of a little bit of a nicer walkway to lead through this building here. I've thought about, hey, maybe I should put in another little shop right there, like a I already have a photo booth that y'all saw me put in, but maybe something else. I don't know, and I might go back and do that. I just decided not to do that this go around. But I'm going to lead the path coming out here, and that'll lead off to one other section. That is one of those things, one of those few things I do know. And really, whenever one of my weaker points in the game is the tree game. It's the tree foliage. It's one of those things that I look at it and sometimes the coloring of it just doesn't seem right. It seems oddly too colored, I guess, as far as the green, the bright green, light green altogether. It's one of those things that, and even when we start looking at some of the more colored trees that are available, I don't know what it is about those. I just visually it just bothers me to see because it just looks like, man, it shouldn't be there. How many times do you walk around and see a purple tree? Me in Austin? Never. I'm not saying they don't exist. I'm just saying I don't see very many purple trees. So my mind just does not let me put it out there. And so here you see me putting in a little walkway cover, and I'll get back to some of that foliage again in a minute because you can tell it bothers me. There's some fence going in. That's the basic Planet Coaster fence. Um, Wood fence that's in there, kind of just to block that area off, so that way nobody, the little stinkers, can jump over. Well, who am I kidding? They can jump over if they really wanted to. But you know, that's just once again, it keeps the inside of the park separate from the outside of the park. Here's the sign going up to indicate go to the bathroom here. You got to drain the main one. Go here. I'm looking at this path work again and the trees, and I could tell you it was just bothering me. So I did take out all these trees and decided to go with an Austin friendly type of tree, a big old oak tree. This is what I decide to go with. We do have oak trees here, so they are very prevalent. I guess that's why they do click with me a little bit more. And here's our regular, live walk around the entrance plaza, so you can kind of get a see for how things look in Tejicam. And I'm also taking a look at what are my viewpoints, so that way I know when I go to build another ride or something, or even put in a lake, I know where all the best viewpoints are going to be at. Okay, so I do want to thank everybody for joining me today. And please remember to like and subscribe for future content, whether it be Planet Coaster or any of the other series I have with Madden or Major League Baseball, the show, MLB 2020. But other than that, I'll catch y'all next time. And so, as always, be safe and later.